Tonight, former DEA legend and agent Cele Castillo takes us on an inside tour of the alleged American war on drugs in Peru and South America. That was an amazing thing to watch play out on the American media stage. From your perspective, watching the whole Noriega caper must have been, I guess you had to laugh at it at some point, didn't you? Because you knew what was going on.
It was just so
ludicrous.
Ironic how we trying to fight this so-called war on drugs when we're letting those third world countries sleep with the cartels.
And watching this whole Noriega caper again go down, knowing what you knew, and seeing how the American public was being lied to and deceived by the media, which played certainly at least a passive role in the whole thing. You must have been also sickened by it.
Absolutely. You know, we had lost an agent, Kiki Camarena, in Mexico, and we lost Frankie Fernandez in Peru.
Did you know these guys?
Oh, absolutely. I knew him. You know, Frankie Fernandez and I used to work together in New York City. And basically what it is this, you know, I couldn't understand what one arm of the government was fighting the so-called war on drugs while the other arm was sleeping with the cartels. And the other arm was more powerful, which was the Central Intelligence Agency, who had jurisdiction over any federal agency.
Right. Stand by right there, Cele. We have to pause. When we come back, we're going to deal with this issue of the CIA involved with drug running. Many Americans just can't accept that. They can't understand how that could possibly be true because there are many heroic and valiant men and women working in service to the country. Doesn't mean all CIA agents are corrupt, but it means there's a problem when you hear it from somebody like Cele Castillo. We're back with Cele Castillo, his website that he wants you to take a look at. If you can get online and simply click right below his name, is drugwar.com. Drugwar.com. He'd also like you to look at Cop v CIA, copvcia.com. And that Mike Rupert's site, fascinating information, believe me. These two gentlemen are just amazing assets to liberty and freedom, and long may they prosper. Tonight we're listening to Cele's story. We have an email question, Cele. I want to dump this in here. It's a good one, and the answer is really pretty obvious, but Jeff, can you please ask why the cessation of drug money laundering would cause a collapse of the banking system? What is the mechanism for that? Signed, Cliff. And Cliff, basically what Cele is saying, I'll let him continue, but he's calling for simple legitimacy of banking, and if the banks were held to legitimate banking practices, the billions upon billions of dollars that float through and get loaned out and everything else would disappear. And the system as we know it, overextended as it is, would begin to implode. Is that a fair summation, Cele?
Absolutely. You know, it's ironic when Clinton went to Colombia right before he left office, the guy from Wall Street went down there, and they asked the FARC organization to launder their drug money into Wall Street. That's how, and that was reported by the New York Times.
I remember that.
And that's what it is. It's all money. And when he went down there, he took about 150 companies that were going to set up shop in Colombia to make more money. And they know that the money, the drug money, is good money for them. To whereas they'll, you know, everybody will make money. You were talking about
sure.
Everybody in government.
Yep.
So that's a fair statement by saying that our banking system would collapse because there's so much money to be made.
We have spent over the 8 years I've been doing this program a number of sessions going all the way back to Terry Reid. Terry was on almost 8 years ago now, Cele, with his amazing book. He was the first one I interviewed about this whole drug money issue. The CIA has been involved in drugs, I guess, from the beginning, hasn't it? It's nothing new. This is old hat.
Absolutely. You know, we go back to Vietnam with the body bags when they were smuggling heroin in body bags, and you know when the CIA was involved with the Cuban exiles down in Miami,
right?
And they were involved in drug trafficking. I'm talking about the 70s, and then in the 80s, you know, with the Iran-Contra and the Contras being involved in drug trafficking, and you know they've been around all over the country and getting away with drug trafficking and so forth. So their history, there's a consistency of evidence to show that the CIA has been involved in drug trafficking.
Are there factions within the agency who don't believe this and who are actually employed to try to do the legitimate drug fighting that you and I believe this country ought to be engaged in? Is the CIA split into multiple elements, so to speak, on this?
Well, they're split in a sense. In reality, no. Everybody in the government knows what they're doing. Nobody's going to take a stand. Number one, they have a mortgage to pay. Number two, they have a career. And they know that that's the way business as usual in the United States government, and they're going to go ahead and continue to turn a blind eye to the whole issue.
I see. It's just look the other way.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have a lot of problems. And the main reason, guys, that the CIA gets away with this is because they end up building what is known as apparatuses outside the Central Intelligence Agency that don't have to answer to Congress or anybody else.
Right.
And there's no paper trail.
So when the CIA says, no, we're not doing this, they really aren't. They have proprietaries and other external organizations and fronts that do it. So
Exactly.
they keep it compartmentalized. Yeah, it's pretty slick. And if anybody does begin to cause any problem, that person can probably, I would imagine, Cele, easily be intimidated, one phone call to shut up.
Exactly. And it does happen a lot. And you know, every single one of us come to that fork in the road in our lives. And that's when you make that decision of how you want to go.
How many times have you been threatened because of what you've been doing?
Oh, hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. I've been threatened with the fact that, and of course the U.S. government, you know, does intimidate you. The first tool they use against you is the IRS.
I was going to say the IRS, yeah.
The IRS, they'll audit you and so forth, and that's their...
That's number one.
Yes.
Mm. You ever get those horrible phone calls late at night?
Absolutely. Yeah. I get a lot of computer messages on the phone.
Mm.
So.
Mm.